Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Concluded, the mini-series where I conclude this entire year by ranking 10 of my top 10 best and worst album covers, songs, and albums that I've listened and seen throughout the year. And in today's video we are going to be taking a look at my personal top 10 worst songs that I've heard this year, and I must admit this list was a bit of a hard one to make because I'm a pretty positive person and I rate things higher than I probably should, so yeah, that's just me. But in any case, let's get right into the 10th spot. So in the number 10 spot we have Nothing. So yeah, the 10th spot is left vacant. I know I'm doing a top 10 list and I'm leaving the 10th spot vacant. It's pretty odd, but yes, despite my OCD and my love for orderliness, I just couldn't really find a song to be put here. And well, the reasoning for it, despite listening to over 1,000 or even 2,000 songs this year, I just couldn't really find the perfect 10, I guess. I could only pinpoint 9, and yeah, that's just the case with this one. I went through a bunch of songs trying to decide which one would take this place, and all of them were pretty redeemable to some extent, and I just didn't have the heart to rank them in the worst category. So yeah, with that being said, let's move on to the 9th spot, which is definitely not vacant. So coming in at number 9 we have the song Industry from the album 3 of a Perfect Pair by King Crimson. Ooh, a big ooh for King Crimson, making 2 appearances on the worst list yet none on the best. Yeah, this is not looking good for them. But I must admit that this song was initially actually higher on the list, meaning that I thought it to be worst, but I listened to it just now and I don't know, something with it clicked, and I guess I just had to put it in 9th place, again stating the fact that this is not an objectively bad song, just one that I have some gripes with and I don't really enjoy. So yes, this song Industry comes to us from the last of the 80s trilogy by Crimson called 3 of a Perfect Pair, and while that album in general, at least in my opinion, is nothing to write home about, I think that this song just exemplifies most of what I don't like about it. But I think that it also does some things very specially. Specifically, this song, while it does exhibit the virtuosyncratic abilities of King Crimson members, obviously is kind of just monotonous and repetitive to some extent. The same rhythm goes throughout this entire song and it goes on for really long, like almost 7 or 8 minutes, and I don't quite enjoy that. And on top of that, there's sort of ambient, rough noises, some improvisation, drums, guitar, whatnot. And it might be avant-garde and interesting, but I know after a while it just kind of gets redundant, and this song is something that I believe after a while you just want to skip on an album. So if I were to come back to this album, this is definitely a song I wouldn't really want to sit through. But as I said, in the right mood this might actually work, and I do understand the themes of industriality presented on here, and it does fit well with industry, and I guess that the entire vibe of this album does encompass this song to a good extent, but still a personal, subjective, unfavorite of mine. Coming in at number 8 we have the song Drawing the Line from the album The Incident by Porcupine Tree. So for all of you Porcupine Tree fans out there, let me first just justify my opinion before I get too salty and dislike this video, as you always do. I don't like this song, but when it starts, I don't quite remember why I don't like it. It has been a few times that I came back to this song in preparation for this list, and every single time this song starts off and I'm like, you know what, maybe this wasn't as bad as I remembered it. And then the chorus hits. By golly, when Steven Wilson starts repeating the line, I'm starting the line, I'm starting the line, I'm losing it, okay? Not in a good way. It's just so cringy. It's so, I don't know, it's so teen punk rock, emo rock, whatever. The guitar is just strumming one chord. It's the most like cringy thing ever. And you see that's gonna be a theme later on in this list. And honestly, the song itself is pretty perfect except for the chorus itself. So that's why it just takes it from being a pretty good song to being a pretty shit one. But while this might be a hard listen, definitely it is nowhere close to being somewhat excruciating. That will come later on this list. Coming in at number 7, we have Rave Up for the Roadies from the album Ferryport by Wigwam. So if you're familiar with the album Ferryport that this song comes off from, you'd know that this 17-minute long improvisation section stands out like a sore thumb within this greatness of an album. But the odd thing about this song, which is so perplexing and I've not been able to wrap my head around it quite yet, is the fact that this song is obviously a filler song. It is here to fill an entire side, but the thing is, they didn't even need that extra side to begin with. This is a double album and for no justifiable reason. They could have cut some things here and there and maybe used some compression, and this could have easily been a fine early 70s single LP album, but instead they just decided to make it a double album and to put this on the second side, and it's so freaking bad. But the thing is, what's bad about this piece isn't necessarily the music to be found on here. I can honestly tell you that I'm not really able to recall what the music on here sounds like, at least not on the technical level, but I can definitely tell you what it sounds like. Yeah, I know, it's kinda odd, but the thing is, this entire improvisation section is just recorded off a nightclub improvisation that they had in 71, and well, it sounds like it was recorded using a toaster oven from the other side of the room from where the band was playing. It sounds so freaking bad. The music itself is just not enjoyable to put on in your ears, and whenever comes a solo, and especially the guitar solos, it's just so screechy and so bad that I don't want to listen to this. And again, no freaking clue why they included this one on this album. This could have easily been something neglectable, not put it on here, and all of us would be saved from this song, maybe except for the few, you know, honorable collectors that would have found this one on like a bootleg or something like that. And yes, I must actually address this. If this song was like a 3-minute long improvisation that they put on, I'd be like, oh, okay, you know what, it has some pretty bad quality on it, but I guess it's fine. But no, it lasts for 17 whole minutes, and as a completionist, I had to listen to this one. I had to endure its entirety in order to actually, you know, listen to the entire album, and I can tell you right now, it wasn't a fun listen. Coming in at number 6, we have All in a Sunday from the album V by Spocks Beard. So this one, quite similarly to Drawing the Line by Porcupine Tree, is yet again one of those songs that whenever I come back to it starts off and I'm like, you know what, this really isn't that bad, it shouldn't be on this worst list, and then the chorus kicks in and you know, it's same song, second verse basically. Again, this is a fine song, at least it starts off with a pretty nice keyboard section and it does sound quite progressive. When the verse hits, it's kind of just ambiguous, I don't really know to which way to take it, but then when the chorus hits, I am reminded that this song is so benign, so plain, so adolescent rock, maybe with some tinges of punk rock, that honestly would have fit better as a Disney Channel intro music for one of their TV shows rather than a prog album song. Again, this just goes to show you that a song can really be ruined by one simple thing. Sometimes just the oddest of choruses can ruin the entire chemistry that a song has. Honestly, if it were the same as its chorus all the way through, I wouldn't have liked it, but I would just kind of be fine with it. I'd roll with it. But the fact that this song sounds like a promising prog piece and then it goes on to divulge into something completely different is just very disappointing. And honestly, it's kind of a shame, but I've never really found the greatness in Spocks Beard V. I don't know why that is. I know that a lot of people love that album, but specifically a lot of its songs are just really benign or just not that exciting, with this one capping them all off. Coming in at number 5, we have In Deepest Sympathy from the album Mouse by Aragon. This song's title basically says it all. The band itself is in deepest sympathy of the suffering that everyone listening to this song is going through. But honestly, to be fair, choosing the worst song off of this entire album was a hard task, and I don't quite believe that this one is the worst, at least not subjectively to me, but objectively I think this one just exemplifies the worst aspects that this album has to offer, which are definitely its low-key laziness. Now, if you don't know what I mean by low-key laziness on this album, there's some pretext that you probably need to know. So Mouse was created by the band Aragon, which by the point of creating this album actually did not have a bassist or a drummer, so what did they do? Did they go ahead and look for new players? Did they go ahead and try to create some sort of an acoustically based album? No, they did none of that. They literally used synthesized bass and drums on here, and it's so painfully obvious. And I think that it's most obvious on this song in particular. It just sounds so bad. And I think that the worst aspect about this song has to be its sort of ethos to some extent, because while you do actually hear the fact that it uses very computerized technological bass and drums on a loop that don't sound like they have any human touch in them, the fact of the matter is you can still, between the creaks, see the visions, the original idea that the band had for this one, and if only they only had a real drummer, a real bassist, they could have had a perfect chemistry on here and created some really fair sounding music, but unfortunately they went the lazy route and decided to create it like this, and thus this entire album, which is, oh my god, so long, it just ends up being pretty bad to listen to, of course, with this one just being its peak. And yes, it's not helped by the Peter Gabriel imitations as well. Coming in at number 4, we have the song Clouded from the album Obscura by the band Gore. Honestly guys, this was a hard pick for me to make because this album is actually quite near and dear to me. You see, Obscura is the first death metal album that I've ever listened to, and to my surprise, I loved it. I thought that it was really good. I recall giving it a rating of 8, and I really enjoyed this album despite it being so out of my comfort zone, at least at that time. But unfortunately, while the album sits comfortably at a rating of 8, there is one song on it that gets a lousy 2, and that's Clouded. I don't know what it is, but this entire album is very fast-paced, you know, double kick drums or stuff like that, guitar shredding, and suddenly this song comes on. It is really slow, like I think about 70 BPM, maybe 80 at max. It's really freaking slow, and while that might be a good thing, you know, as a refresher, because there has been so many overwhelming things up until this now with the growling and stuff, this song could have been used as a refresher, but unfortunately it's almost 10 minutes long of just slow paced going like this, doing not a lot of things. And you know what, I would have loved calling this song just a big slow burn, but the thing is, I don't refer to something as being a long slow burn if it doesn't have at least any payoff at the end, which is definitely what this song does. It literally has no conclusion, no climax, no nothing. It doesn't really even go up in the volume throughout its runtime. It just kinda, you know, slowly moves through time and just fills up time like that. I really don't enjoy that, and it just honestly ruins this entire album for me, at least if I decide not to skip it. Coming in at number 3, we have the song Whole from Petal Giant Animals by Petal Giant Animals. Okay, so for the last 3 songs on this ranking, I must say that they all are to some extent my top pick, but you see, they are number 1 in different categories, with this song getting into the number 1 category of being the most benign, most basic song that I've heard this entire year. Seeing as I did review Petal Giant Animals not too long ago, a lot of you might remember that I really despised the first half of this album. For some reason, it's the most basic rock ballads, no creativity, no inspiration, no nothing, just kinda, you know, wasting the listener's life, and I think that the worst aspect of it has to be this song called Whole, which wholly encapsulates everything that's wrong with this first side. This one is the most basic rock ballad, you know, tinges of God loving inside of there that I've ever heard, and it's honestly so cringy for it. The lyrics on here honestly are some of the most uninspired pieces of poetry that I've ever heard. I think it starts off with something like, "She feels like dancing. He doesn't feel like dancing," and I'm like, wow, what intricacy, you know, comparing the two, the balance, the what, yeah. It's really not good. The song itself is built on like 2 alternating chords, and it's so painfully basic. I couldn't really go on with it, and of course I had to listen to it a few more times in preparation for this list, and I can tell you definitely by now that I never want to come back to it. Coming in at number 2, we have the song Global Warming from the album From Mars to Sirius by Gojira. So let me ask you a question. What is in common with the dying of my ears and the dying of our lovely Earth? Well, it's global warming. This song resides comfortably at the top of the painful to listen to category in this ranking, and it definitely takes the number 1 spot in that. This song, it's so hard for me to listen to, and it might be a purely subjective thing because I know there's a lot of people that love Gojira and specifically love the album that this one comes off of, but to me this one was just a complete train wreck, and I think that it all comes down to the guitar. The song starts off with this shredding of the electric guitar that it's honestly just pretty annoying to some extent, and it doesn't really go well with my ears, and I was hoping to some extent, maybe subconsciously, that it would only persist for like, the beginning of the song, maybe come up once later, but no, from my assessment this guitar shredding lasts pretty consistently throughout at least 85% of this entire song, and it just makes it so intolerable in my opinion. Maybe some people with less abilities of hearing these high notes would be better off with this one, but I just literally cannot focus on anything else that this song is doing because it annoys me so freaking badly. Honestly, the only way I could really find to listen to this song, even in preparation for this album, was lowering the volume quite a bit, just so I wouldn't really hear it to the same extent, but still, it's such a bad listening experience, and honestly, it might be an okay song, although I kinda doubt that because I don't enjoy Gojira that much, but still, there's nothing that could distract me from this awful shredding sound. So coming in at number 1, we have Talk to the Wind from Pictures at an Exhibition by Voyager IV. So alas, this one stands in its category of being the worst executed song that I've heard this entire year, but I think that even subjectively and objectively, I would call this one the worst out of any category so far that I've heard, thus earning it its number 1 ranking on this list. Now, some of you might not actually know Voyager IV, and that's fine. I did not know of them as well, and the only reason I listened to this album is because I was about to see them live in Loreley, Germany this year, and I just wanted to get ready, and honestly, it was a big mistake, but I did it anyway. And some of you might notice that this song's title is called Talk to the Wind, which is just one eye distance away from being I Talk to the Wind, the iconic song from King Crimson's debut. And well, you guessed it. This is a cover of that song, and let me tell you, this cover is the worst cover I've ever heard. It is different for the sake of just being different. Honestly, if Voyager IV just played the original song note for note, I would be better off if they did that than what they did on here. They're just trying to be pretentious. The vocals themselves sound like they're trying to do all of these flourishes and interesting new things, and I'm gonna do it differently because Greg Lake didn't know what he was doing back then, and we're gonna make something different out of it, and it's gonna be great, and let me fucking tell you that it's not. And by the way, this album by theirs actually decided to ruin 2 perfectly original songs, the first one being Lucky Man by ELP and the second one being Talk to the Wind, or I Talk to the Wind. And well, while I do believe that both of them are almost equally bad and deserving of the number 1 spot on this list, I decided that Talk to the Wind is just a bit worse. Everything on this song just sounds off kilter. The musicianship is fine, I guess, but knowing the original just destroys any sense of love that one might have for this version. And much like many other songs on this list so far, it would have been fine if it just ended as quickly as it started, but it doesn't. It severely overstays its welcome, thus making it so sufferable to go through. And of course, this is a song that I was trying so hard to just forget about, but in preparations for this video, I listened to it and now I know exactly what it sounds like, and it's stuck in my head and I literally want to die for it. I don't really want to die, but still, it's so freaking bad. I don't want to know this song, and I don't encourage anyone here to go ahead and check it out. But yeah, Let's stop with all of this negativity and come back to the positive, because this was this list. I'm not gonna be coming back to these songs anytime soon, but fortunately tomorrow we will be reviewing my top 10 favorite songs from the series this year. And might I add, I think this is the list that I was most anticipated making, because well, my top 10 songs are basically, or have basically become holy to me, and I would really like to share them with you. But yeah, with that being said, I'd like to thank my lovely supporters over on Patreon. So thank you so much to Claywon, Wrist of Kings, and Lindsay Haycox. You guys are just the best. And if any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the link down in the description or in my about page. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.